This episode is brought to you by San Pellegrino Ciao, a new kind of flavored sparkling water. The kind made with real fruit juice, a pinch of Sicilian salt, and the sparkle of the Italian sun. With no added sugar and just 10 or less calories per can, enjoy. With love, from Italy. By San Pellegrino Ciao now.
The kid you hear playing the piano, he's not mine. On top of the 2 weekly piano lessons and finger yoga, I give my son Smarty Pants vitamins to support his brain health because while I'm supposed to say it's not a competition, of course it's a f***ing competition. Choose Smarty Pants vitamins to support your kid's brain health and help them master whatever their chopsticks may be. Shop on Amazon, smartypantsvitamins.com, or at Target today.
You're listening to Dr. Emma and me on the Tudors Dynasty and Beyond podcast. And now, here are your hosts.
Hello and welcome back. Well, it's Thursday, so you know what that means. It's Dr. Emma and me, and today I'm in Minnesota, but Emma is in Spain. Welcome.
Hi, hola.
You know what? I'm so happy that you are in your home country, but I also miss you so much. It's ridiculous.
I miss you very much too. It's just, the weather here being nice and sunny. Well, it's not really. It's been raining. It's helped. It's helped. To be back home has helped a little bit to not miss you as much. But I'm starting, to feel all the feels.
Oh, good. Well, if it makes you feel any better, it's been extremely hot and humid since you've been gone in Minnesota. So it's miserable.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Great summers, right?
It's all right. It's summer. I'd rather have this than the snow on the ground and the negative temperatures any day.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not going to complain about a little bit of rain. It's typical in Santander to have very nice sunny days and to be ready for everything. So if you guys ever come here, just bring your umbrella and your swimsuit.
Oh,
You need to bring both.
That's it.
And be ready to change your plans because sometimes it's very cloudy in the morning and then there's a nice, beautiful sunshine in the afternoon. Or you can go to the beach in the morning and then the sea decides there needs to be a storm, a big one.
Oh.
And you need to go home because you get, it's raining and pouring down. So it's interesting. I love it. I'm not going to go. I think my Irish DNA doesn't complain about it either.
No. I feel like it's been so long since I've heard your voice now that I had a hard time understanding your accent there for a second. And instead of saying change your plans, I thought you said you might have to change your pants.
Oh, that too. Sometimes if you get, if it's pouring rain, but maybe, I don't know, maybe I've been speaking Spanish for a couple of weeks now and that, it has an effect. I was in London.
Oh, that's
and
right.
I spent a week in a pirate ship. No, I didn't.
Things have been good, and the show has been going on. We had banked up a couple episodes before you left. The last episode of Dr. Emma and me was with you and me and Dr. Carol Levin. That was a fun one, wasn't it?
Oh, it was so amazing to bring her. She was it was so much fun to when you have, people that you admire and then you meet them in person and they're like great people too.
Yeah.
And you make that instant connection. So thank you so much to Professor Carol Levin, who came to talk to us. And I thought it was very insightful and there's still so much to learn about Elizabeth and Mary's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made me think a lot. And I've been working a lot on that book that I mentioned about in the previous episode that Carol will be publishing as an editor in Queenship and Power. And it's going to open a very, very interesting new perspective on these two sisters.
I'm so excited for this book to come out.
Yes.
I really am. Well, but before we get into today's episode, I want to talk about our course that we announced last week, or I guess when this comes out. Yeah, it would have been last week that we announced it.
Yes. So this course, Forging a Queen, that we announced is perfect. I've done some courses too, but the reality is that putting a course together with a high level is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult because it needs to be engaging, but also it needs to fit people's lives. And also it needs to be to a level where people are interested in what you're saying. So I've done several courses in different places, but I thought, with this dynamic that we were having, to do a course on something that I've studied for the large part of 15 years now, would be amazing, because I do hear a lot in the comments things about what the course is about, right?
Mhm.
Which is really something that I am a specialist in, is Catherine of Aragon's formative years and childhood years in Spain. And Rebecca and I were joking the other day. I was joking that I know Catherine of Aragon's childhood better than I know my own.
Right?
It's the reality at this point in my life, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
The reason why that is because when I started my first relationship with Catherine of Aragon came through, I started studying her in these years as the project that I did for my master's dissertation way back many centuries ago.
It wasn't that long ago.
Oh, it was a long
Gosh.
time ago, Rebecca.
You're not that old. Let's just say that.
Well, okay. I studied for my master's dissertation the diplomatic negotiations, really, that Henry VII and then Elizabeth of York and Isabel of Castile and Fernando of Aragon established for the marriage of Catherine and Arthur. And that was my project. And I finished it with the wedding festivities in 1501 in London, because it was a way to do that first project of the formative years of Catherine of Aragon, that when I was reading Tudor books, Gary Mattingly's famous biography, but also the biographies of the Six Wives by David Starkey, Antonia Fraser, and all these things, I could see there was a lack of knowledge on these years. And then I knew there was a lot of sources in the case of her mother, Isabel of Castile. All her accounts were published. The problem is that they were in Spanish, which was not a problem for me, because, Spanish is my first language.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited for this course. And the course is titled Forging a Queen, Catherine of Aragon Before England, but we are taking it up to the marriage of Arthur, aren't we?
Well, the reason why this is really is because that project was like that. It really makes sense because there's a large source at the end of this of the wedding festivities, and that goes until really Arthur's death. And really, it's a pivotal point for Catherine, because all those things that she learns in Spain and all the objects that which is something I studied, because I studied these diplomatic relations in relation to the art that was exchanged by both courts, and also the large trousseau that she took as a wedding trousseau. So studying that and taking her all the way to the marriage of Arthur and death, with that long chronicle that there is of the marriage, made sense to me, because then that the objects are in England. She is now a widow. You can kind of like start her relationship with Henry really at that point, right?
Yeah.
Which is going to be the following course, probably.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So we opened ticket sales on the 23rd. Yes. We are in the early bird stage of the ticket sales. I think the last day of early bird pricing is August 6th. The course starts September 17th. So you can purchase tickets up to September 16th, the day before. It's going to be 6 weeks worth of amazing Dr. Emma knowledge. You're going to have They are pre-recorded videos that we're going to be doing, and we do that just so that everybody can participate. We have a global audience. So we'll have a 60-minute pre-recorded video once a week. We're going to do live chats as well. Emma is going to offer book suggestions frequently.
We said book, but all types of media really, and all types of resources that over the years have helped me so much, because I think there's a lot of people that want to do their own research into these early years of not only of Catherine, because really when we study this, we're studying all the daughters of Isabel of Castile, and we're also studying Isabel of Castile, really, and her patronage of the arts, her relationship to the Tudors. So really, It's course based on the art, but art based on diplomacy, which is really interesting, and I think people like and enjoy. So yeah, I'm very excited for this.
I am probably as excited as some of you are for this course to learn some new things. And I don't think anyone can teach Catherine of Aragon and Spanish monarchy like Dr. Emma can. And that was really the driving force behind this is let's get out the Spanish side of the story too. You've looked at these Spanish archives.
Yes, yes.
You can read Spanish, obviously, which is a huge benefit. And like, why not allow you to relay what you've learned to the rest of us? And that's what I'm excited about. Well, if you were just listening to us talk about this course and a little bit of what you should expect from it, there is going to be a link in the show notes. You can go to my website. You can find the link for this pretty much anywhere.
I want to remind people too that the early birds get a bonus class.
Yes.
And I think in many ways and respects is one of the most innovative and the coolest classes in the course, because in that class I will delve into the project I did with Rachel King at the British Museum, where I have my exhibition Spaces of Eternity still running now if you're going to visit the London this summer. But in the case with Rachel King, I worked on the project of that amazing necklace that was found by someone doing metal detecting
Yeah.
in England, and that amazing heart-shaped pendant and chain that was found with H and K initials
Yeah.
and pomegranates and Tudor roses. So we know it belonged to Catherine and Henry, or one of them, or one of them made it for the other, or commissioned it for the other. Most likely Henry for Catherine, obviously. It's a short necklace, more fitted for a woman's neck, probably. So in that bonus class, I will talk about, how I was able to help the British Museum in this case. Now that I can talk about it, I'll talk a little bit about how I wasn't able to talk about it for a long time and the reasons why. You have to be very, very careful when you're helping these projects because, they're highly important too. So I
Yeah.
think it's going to be cool.
Yeah, it's all so exciting, you guys. I want everybody to take part of this because I just feel like it's going to offer so much more about Catherine and her life that we haven't even covered on the podcast. I feel like we've covered a lot about Catherine and the Spanish monarchy, but this is going to be next level. So if you're interested, please find the link in the show notes. Go check out all the information it has each week laid out. It's got pricing there. It's got everything there. And as I'm sitting here looking at Dr. Emma smiling, I can't help but notice this beautiful tapestry that she has behind you. So if you're not watching the video, stop, go to YouTube, go to Spotify, watch this video because this tapestry behind you is beautiful. It looks like you almost have a crown on your head and wings coming out too.
I know, right? Maybe I just sat here for the greater effect. Well, I just wanted everybody to know that I am now in my, in my house in Santander, and how cool my house in Santander is too.
Yeah.
So Rebecca stepped it up and has changed her house too, apparently. What's up with your amazing, impressive bookcase, Rebecca?
Oh, thank you. This bookcase has been a work in progress, and I am so
Ah,
excited that it is finished and it is here, and I am absolutely in love and obsessed with it. I seriously, Emma, every morning I walk it's my second bedroom, but I call it my studio. I walk into the room, I turn on the lights to the bookcase, I rub my hand across it, and I say, "Good morning, beautiful."
okay,
This
okay,
is how much
okay.
I love this bookcase. If
It
you're
is.
not,
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's
it's like,
pretty cool.
yeah,
And I see that you have, you have your helmet there. I
I'm
see
like, you
that you
can't
have
see.
so much better than that picture of Henry you had before. I must say.
I knew you'd appreciate that. Henry is
Yeah, you
still,
have a
he's,
map of England. It looks very cool. So shout out to you
thanks.
for stepping it up. So I'm
Yes.
glad I have my nice tapestry too. This was a gift.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So yeah, today is like a big show for us. We're just revealing all kinds of new things, aren't we?
Oh, I'm so excited. This is a good show because it was easy for me to prepare because I know
Yeah.
so much about these two women. I've struggled a little bit in some of the ones that we've done, a little bit, just a little
Mhm.
bit, because when you're not as familiar with the people, it just seems like you almost like, well, I sound dumb when I don't, remember something. In this case, I feel pretty confident that I know a lot, especially about one of them. And for my dissertation project, I had to study the other one a lot, so
Mm.
I'm pretty excited because it's going to be pretty
Yeah.
easy.
I feel like people recommended this Parallel Lives, but
I think so too, yeah.
I don't remember who did. And I think
It makes
maybe
sense too, right?
it, you know
I
what,
think at the very beginning. I think at
yeah.
the very beginning, yeah.
At first, when you brought up these two, I thought, I'm not so sure. Like, what parallels are they going to have? But okay. So just so you know, today we're talking about Elizabeth of York and Isabel of Castile. And I mean,
What
seriously,
parallels the name?
see, this is so true.
They were
And
besties.
uh,
These two were besties for years. Besties. I can't
yeah,
even emphasize that enough. How much besties they became, cared for each other, loved each other, considered each other family, and became the bestest besties that never met, like many people during that time, because, it's a different time. You can't just
yeah,
travel from one place to another. And how much this became the case because they knew that Catherine Aragon's life depended on it, right? Because
yeah.
she was being raised by Isabel of Castile in Spain, but knew from the very beginning when she was named Catherine after Catherine of Lancaster, probably they already were starting to negotiate the fact that she was, once Elizabeth had Arthur just over 10 months after Catherine was born, not even a year after, they started the negotiations. And Elizabeth was very adamant to obviously bring Catherine to England to marry the Prince of Wales because who did not want to, be family with Isabel of Castile, who by the time that Henry VIII becomes King of England is becoming very powerful
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
Not quite there yet, but getting there.
Yeah, I think this is it is a really good pairing for Parallel Lives, these two. I see it more now than I did originally. I'm
Well, and
obsessed.
think about the fact that in these times, these women were always like, know their names. Elizabeth of York, she was English, Elizabeth of York. Isabel of Castile, she was Spanish. And other places, now they call her Isabela of Castile. But back in the day, Isabel of Castile used a lot her Latin name,
Hmm.
Isabela. So, for example, when you go to Granada, you see lots of Y's because she wrote her name a lot with a Y, F and
Oh,
Y. Fernando and Isabel with a Y.
oh,
Um, but I've seen that, for example, in some books dedicated to her, she's called the same way that Elizabeth the First of England is called in the books dedicated to her, because they used more Latin-based forms of names and more, or their name in French, or so they shared a name, and they knew that's. And these names are popular for a reason. It's because Isabel of Castile is also English in a
mm.
way, right? So that's why there's family connections between the two women.
Yeah, they're like distant cousins, kind of.
Yeah, well, everybody was a distant cousin, royalty. But in the Atlantic Crusade, in these kingdoms, Castile and England are very intertwined during the Hundred-Year War and then in the War of Roses. I mean, Isabel is involved in the War of Roses. And
Yeah.
Edward IV does an agreement with Isabel, and could have been she could have been married to Edward IV, Elizabeth of York's father. This is how
Oh,
interesting this all is, because Isabel of Castile descends from Catherine of Lancaster
yes.
and John of Gaunt. So York's, Lancasters, we know what it's like.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with Wars of the Roses. That was really my first love before I fell in love with the Tudors. And Elizabeth of York's story is I don't even. it's like tragic, but also great. Like you feel for her childhood and all the stuff that she had to go through. And then marrying Henry Tudor, like how her life changed. I love this story and I can't wait to hear more of the parallels that you've come up with them. So where do we start? Where do you want to start for the first parallel today?
The first parallel is that they're both born princesses, right?
Yeah.
So Elizabeth of York is born to Edward the Fourth, and Elizabeth Woodville,
Two
um,
hotties.
two hotties. And she was known to be a hottie too, so
Yeah.
that always helps Henry's settle for marriage. And Isabel of Castile was the daughter of John II of Castile, his second marriage.
Mm.
So born princesses, but not to rule. The first and main reason because they were girls, right?
Yeah.
And the first parallel is that they're very important dynastically. But the first parallel is also the first difference is that one ends up ruling in her own right and the other one doesn't. The other one ends up being used really to unify the houses of York and Lancaster and then the conflict. So uh, civil war is really these women solve these civil wars with their marriages, but in one case it's very different to the other case. In one case, Isabel is like, I'm the ruling queen. Fernanda's also king, but she's the one who is proclaimed queen and carries the sword for Fernando gets really annoyed because she does this because that means that she is the source of justice and it becomes queen in her own right. So Isabel of Castile has a very different trajectory because she becomes a ruling queen versus Elizabeth of York, who becomes a queen consort, right? The
Yeah.
first Tudor queen consort. And now the reason why I studied Elizabeth of York so much too is because the lack of sources for Catherine of Aragon. What I did was study other queen consorts, obviously, and Elizabeth is the precedent for Catherine of Aragon because she's the only wife that Henry VII has.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is just, I don't know, it's so fascinating to me when we look at this because the two women um they were in a difficult position. Like Elizabeth of York, had she been allowed to become queen regnant.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And Isabel, I feel like what was the Salic law again at the time? Was she allowed to be queen or was this something that she just claimed?
Salic law does not apply to Castile and England. It applies in Aragon and France.
Oh.
So in the case of but the problem is there's lack of precedents and the majority of people don't want a woman to rule, especially the
Mhm.
nobility, right? Because they don't think they're fit to rule. I think in Castile and England, that is left, the door is left open because of the problems and the crises that they experienced dynastically too, right? And we know in England with Matilda, there's like a sort of a precedent for Mary the First of England when she tries to become queen, and how that ends up not very well. So Elizabeth of York's situation is very different to Isabel's because of the way really that the War of Roses develops, right? Because it's really Henry conquering the throne. It's really
Yeah.
Henry killing Richard III and really saying, well, I'm kind of a Lancaster, so I'm the king now. So he conquers the throne. Whereas Isabel inherits it, really, but not really, because her predecessor, her half brother, Henry IV, had supposedly had a daughter that would have been the next queen, but
Mhm.
Isabel claimed that she wasn't legitimate, and that started a civil war. So Isabel, what she does is she marries Fernando before this war starts, so she can use Fernando as her companion in this war, and that's why they both rule really. But
Yeah.
it's her who has the right to rule, not Fernando. That's why when she dies in 1504, Fernando's left as regent of Juana, really her daughter who succeeds Isabel.
Yeah.
So it's Henry VII really who changes this in England and is like, because Elizabeth would have been a better claimant to the throne, really.
Yeah.
She was daughter of a king.
Yeah. Okay, here's my question for you too. And both of these women were born princesses, and they likely, I don't know about Isabel, but they likely weren't raised to rule. They were raised as a princess who was going to marry somebody who would help the country. So, would you say their education growing up was pretty similar in that respect then?
Yes. In the sense, Isabel doesn't grow up in the main court. She grows up with her mother, who is very sick mentally, in Arevalo with her younger brother, who is the heir to the throne for some time because he's a boy,
Yeah.
right? Her half brother is king, but he has lots of problems to produce a male heir. Sounds a bit similar to the
Yes.
Tudors.
Yes, it does.
But he has finally a daughter. The queen has a daughter, but it seems like the king wasn't the father. That's what it was. Henry IV had a previous marriage that ended up in annulment because he didn't consummate. So it was believed that he was gay and that he just didn't engage in that activity, in sexual activity with his wife, and that's why it was weird that he would have um, a, a, a child, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what Isabel went with. And it's first the faction around her brother that proclaims her brother when they want to take down Henry IV, who's considered a weak monarch, right? Um, but once her brother dies from some fevers, very young, it's Isabel really who becomes the leader of that faction before Henry IV dies already. And
Okay.
she is the one who forces the king's hand and says, I'm your heir because your daughter's not legitimate. And they go to Toros de Guisando, and they seal an agreement there where there's some prehistoric sculptures there. You can go and visit that place. And that's where they sign an agreement where she's proclaimed accepted by Henry IV as Princess of Asturias. The title that started with Catherine of Lancaster mimicking the Princess of Wales and Prince of Wales. So
Mm.
this title of the heirs had in Castile now, right? That
Yeah.
was a copy of the one in England. So the second he does that, signs that, he's giving her the power because she's the next heir. Once, but the agreement is that she's going to marry whoever the king thinks is fit. But what does Isabel do? She's already got her eyes set on Fernando, and she disobeys the king and marries Fernando in secret. So that kind of like kicks off a civil war, really, in Castile, that Fernando fights for Isabel, but it's really Isabel who is the owner of the crown. In Spanish, called Reina Propietaria, the one who has the ownership of the kingdom, really.
Okay. Okay.
It's a very different situation to England. I think in that sense, they often say, and I don't agree with this, that it was Henry VIII who decided to marry Elizabeth of York. Maybe it was Elizabeth of York who decided to marry Henry VII to avoid more bloodshed, and because she knew the conditions were not there for her to claim the throne after this guy had killed Richard III. She's like, no more killings, please. I'll
Yeah.
marry you. And probably was an agreement between both. Why not? You know, we
Yeah.
tend to see this as black and white, but it wasn't. Isabel gave Fernando many powers in Castile. He was a full king. It's not like he wasn't a nobody there. So
Yeah.
I think what these royal couples are starting to do is they want to walk away from the turmoil in the Middle Ages. They want to start to be power couples. And you can see that with Henry VIII, seventh. Sorry, I keep saying Henry VIII. Sorry, Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. You can see it with Isabel and Fernando. I think to a bigger extent with
Yeah.
Isabel and Fernando. They just become more famous. They become the Catholic monarchs. They finish. They conquer Granada. They just become very famous, you know. And Elizabeth dies at 39. She's very young when she dies too.
Yeah, she is.
So if she would have lived another 10 years, maybe Elizabeth and Henry VII would have been known for other things. It was just because Isabel had the power in Castile that I think is just an outstanding example that has stuck more in time, as a extraordinary example.
Yeah.
And they were the founders of Spain, so they were just very famous monarchs.
Everybody knows their name.
Yeah, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
That's right.
I really want to talk about the relationship between these two women because I feel like that's something I know very little about. I know
Yeah.
they had contact with one another, but I don't know to what extent. And I would love if you could elaborate on their relationship for us.
Well, I know it starts early on because as soon as 1488, so this is when Arthur is only a baby,
Yeah.
a little baby, and Catherine's just a toddler. Two Spanish ambassadors ascend to the court of Henry VII to meet Arthur and start the negotiations. And there's, I love ambassadors, so I'm always like
Yes,
going
you
into
do.
their reports and because they're saucy and they tell you all the details. I love them.
Yeah.
Maybe I said I would have been an abbess in the previous episode if I would have, but if I would have been a man, probably an ambassador is a good job to have in Renaissance Europe. You get to meet Henry VIII, but then you get to leave too. You can't.
You're
Things like
safe.
that. Bye, Henry. Back to Venice. So speaking back about the ambassadors in 1488, this is how early this alliance is. 1488. This is also already a description of the ambassadors, Spanish ambassadors, is saying, "Oh, we talked to Henry, and there was this, and Henry was talking about money, of course, Henry VII, and how much it was going to, I want more money for this marriage and this and that." But then they described that after that, they were taken to Greenwich, which we'll talk about soon, um, to visit the Queen and to meet the baby.
Mm.
And when they met the baby, the whoever brought the baby took all the baby's clothes off so they could see that he didn't have any deformities, it said. And after that, they gave a picture of Arthur to the ambassador. So it was in the Queen's quarters where this picture was given to the ambassador to take to Isabel, because afterwards, when the turn of the century, that picture is in Isabel's possession in the Alcázar, in the palace in Madrid, at the turn of the century. And it says, a picture that they say is Prince Arthur. Well, they say because it's a baby, right? So this is how early these two women. So Isabel of Castile has a picture of baby Arthur since 1488. That's how close these two.
Where is this picture?
Well, the Alcázar burned down. So we have documentary evidence of this picture in two different sources. The ambassador mentions it. He mentions an image of the prince sent to Spain after there was a party and a dance, and Elizabeth of York was there, and her ladies danced. They showed the baby. The baby was stripped, and then the ambassador was given an image to take to Spain. When 14 years later, the pictures of Isabel are accounted for in the Alcázar in the palace in Madrid, that picture is there. But not just that picture. There's another box that she has with pictures of Henry VII, Elizabeth of York, and another picture of Arthur Tudor. So Isabel of Castile had a picture of Elizabeth of York.
Wow.
Yeah. In Madrid.
So they were like sending pictures back and forth, I would assume.
They were sending pictures, and they were sending many other things. They were sending treaties, obviously, and negotiations, tokens of friendship, many, many things. They were sending people all the time. And we have evidence that because there's turmoil in England, because Perkin Warbeck and all these it's not sure if Henry's going to be able to stick around being the King of England.
Yeah.
The marriage negotiations kind of like freeze for a year or two, but starting in 1496, 7, they kick on full on again. And then towards the end of the century, the trousseau that Catherine is going to take to England starts to appear in Isabel's accounts. And towards the end, it just becomes the most lavish trousseau that she's ever put together because she's the last one to leave.
Oh.
So you don't even know how many things she took to England with her. And
Yeah,
all
so
those things became part of the royal collection of Henry VIII.
let's talk about what a
Married her.
trousseau is if people don't know what that is.
Yeah. So a trousseau, when they arranged the marriage negotiations and they arranged the marriage for Catherine and Arthur, part of the agreement was that back in the Renaissance, in the case of the royal families, the woman would bring a dowry, would bring since in the future she would have to be sustained by the king because she was going to marry a future king.
Yeah.
The parents would give a dowry to be able to fulfill her needs, and it's a way to secure her future, right? The bigger the dowry, the more you oblige that future king to give her a big assignment, a big as good good revenues, good territories, and things like that. Well, in the case of Catherine of Aragon, it was the biggest one that had ever been given to a Princess of Wales or Queen of England. So it's impressive. And it was agreed that part of it would be given in jewels, plates, and all the things that a Princess of Wales would need. So there's a lot of elements of her chapel, lots of crucifixes, lots of jewelry with their initials, A for Arthur,
Hmm.
tapestries of the story of Alexander. Why Alexander? Because it starts with an A. So they're starting to identify Arthur with Alexander the Great. But doing a lot of this, constructing the image of the Princess of Wales, there's a lot of her chapel pieces that have the stamp of the Princess of Wales, because that's going to be what she's going to use as part of her private chapel. Because she doesn't go to England to just be anyone. She goes to England to be the future Queen of England. I'm the daughter of Isabel and Fernando, and Isabel is going to like, these English people are going to know how rich we are, Fernando. Believe me.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
When
so
the agreement was sealed in 1489, the real agreement in the Palace of La Mota that we've talked about in Medina del Campo, Isabel is described, the herald, the English, well, he's not English, he's Portuguese, but he's working for Henry VII. The herald says that she was covered in gold and in jewels. So all her dress was gold, and he's like, I've never seen anyone dressed in such a rich attire in my life. They said that her whole attire was more than and he mentions the quantity of money, that it's more than, you know, um, I don't know, half the revenue of England in a year or something like that. It's just, she is showcasing herself as a very, very rich and powerful monarch by sending this collection of things that she's sending with her daughter. And then her youngest daughter was her favorite. So, she was the one that looked the most like her, the one that stayed the longest like her, the one that had the most similar character to her, and the smartest one who listened to her mom always.
Yeah.
So she was like, okay, just put a few more things in there.
Let's make sure she's good to go.
Yeah. And these English people, I'm not sure if they're very into the Renaissance yet. So make sure you put plenty of paintings, and then the people who are assigned to her service. I did a bit of research on this, not as much as in the artistic realm, but a lot of them, of the people that were placed in Catherine of Aragon's service, the Spanish people that were meant to stay in England, have ties and connections to the trade that goes on between England and Spain and Flanders. So they're from families usually from the north of Spain, which makes sense because it's easier to have contacts between London and the north of Spain than between London and Valencia in the Mediterranean coast. So that's also important, that trying to build networks, family ties, right? For example, a very important person is Maria de Salinas.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Maria de Salinas comes from the north of Spain, from the Basque country, the region next to my region. So This is how important these marriages are for artistic exchange, but also for network developing, economical development. The agreement is really an economical agreement to face the fact that they're both rivals with France.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like it could have been such a complicated relationship between Elizabeth and Isabel
Mm-hmm.
because of everything that was going on in England at the time. And I think we talk often about Perkin Warbeck and Lambert Simnel and that whole thing playing out as these negotiations are still happening.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what's your take on that whole thing? Is there communication between Isabel and
Yes.
Elizabeth where she's like,
Yes.
get rid of these guys or I'm not sending
Yeah.
my daughter over?
Perkin Warbeck directly sends a letter to Isabel.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's bold.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about Margaret of York.
Yeah.
So, she was involved in all that. I think in Isabel's case, she had a closer connection to Elizabeth of York, who she knew was a daughter of Edward the Fourth, and Isabel was all about who's your father, who's your mother, right? Than with Henry the Seventh. So I think she was just not sure if he was going to be able to sustain his claim because it wasn't a very good claim. Isabel of Castile had a better claim to the English throne than Henry the Seventh. She could
That's
have been
crazy.
the Queen of England,
I,
right?
I I would say I'm not
Maybe she should have.
surprised, but
Maybe she should. She should have been like, Elizabeth, I'm coming to your rescue. Don't worry about it.
I'm coming to your rescue
No.
and then I'm going to sit on the throne.
And then I'm going to sit on it. I'm going to be crowned in Westminster Abbey. Can you imagine that? That would have been weird.
Yeah.
No, but well, really, it does happen in a way because her granddaughter is Mary the First of England.
Oh, yeah.
It is Isabel of Castile who opens the door for Mary to be Queen of England. If Isabel of Castile would have not have succeeded in that civil war and been, Queen of Castile and raised Catherine of Aragon the way she did, becoming famous and giving her all this stuff and giving her a prestige that nobody else had in Europe, Catherine would have had the self-esteem to become such a, popular queen consort and do all the things she did, and then she wouldn't have had the what some people call the stubbornness to face Henry's, ridiculous claim that they were never married, or that she wasn't the true Queen of England, and her daughter was a bastard. Come on.
Yeah.
What does every USAA member have in common? Family. We're one big family who supports the military community and their eligible families. And if you, your parent, or spouse served, you could join our family and save big on auto insurance. Visit USAA.com/join today to check your eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Oh gosh, that whole thing.
That whole thing, and then people defend him or defend Anne Boleyn, and I'm like, okay, guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yes, I think that Isabel really truly admired Elizabeth of York because of that she was born a princess and that had to go through very, very tough times, and that she was still trying to make peace and bring England together by marrying Henry VII, by having Arthur, by having more children with him, really being the matriarch of the Tudors. And then I think for also getting along with her mother-in-law, who was very intense, the Countess of Richmond was always involved in everything. So I think they always say, oh, she obscured Queen Elizabeth of York. I think Queen Elizabeth of York was just very good at making people like her and had an ease around people. And that's why she got along with Catherine of Aragon when she arrived, because Catherine was the same as her. I think they just had an ease about them that Isabel tried to have, Isabel of Castile, but she didn't. She was a moody one. She had her character, Isabel, more than Elizabeth and Catherine.
I feel like with all the family turmoil that Elizabeth of York had and all of the times that she had to go into sanctuary with her mother, I suspect there could have been something about the personality of all of those children, and I guess especially the women, the daughters, since they're the ones who survived, that they just felt like they had to adapt to any situation that they were in.
Exactly. Which is a more natural way to react, probably, for a woman in that time than Isabel's character of like, okay, I'm the princess now, but I'm not going to marry who you say. I'm going to marry whoever I want.
Right?
Okay, I'm not going to wait for you to be proclaimed queen because I want to. This sword is pretty cool, and I want to. So Isabel is the one acting weird. Isabel of Castile is the one who really did, things that no woman had done before her. She reminds me a lot. Maybe we should do parallel lives at one point with someone like. She does have precedence in the Iberian Peninsula in Urraca of Leon. Urraca of Leon was the first queen in Europe, really, and she was feisty.
That is a name I've never heard before.
Urraca, Leon. So Castile was made of several kingdoms. One of them was Leon. The city of Leon is, which means lion in English, is the word for it. But it's really it was the foundation of the Romans, of a Roman legion that ended up founding the city of Leon. That was one of the first Christian kingdoms in the Iberian Peninsula to form. And in the 12th century, there was a very famous queen who was a warrior queen called Urraca the First. So Isabel had some precedents in the Iberian Peninsula. Women like her, Catherine of Lancaster ruled Castile as a regent for many years, so effectively ruling on her own. So I think it's the context gave Isabel a self-esteem that and a presence and a mindset, and they say a lot about that. They say, girls stop thinking they can be astronauts when they're around 6, 7, 8 because they don't have presidents. Well, now they do, when we were kids, things like that. Or a female president, for example, right? That's the same thing. They say that, I read a very interesting article once about do you remember the X-Files?
Of course, yes. I used to watch it
so
all the
Agent
time.
Scully and her role, and the show became so big that they saw a boom in girls wanting to join STEM and a boom in girls going into science because of how popular Gillian Anderson's character became. I remember, I thought she was the coolest woman on earth.
She was. And that's neat that it inspired.
She was a smart one too.
She was. Mulder was the loose cannon.
Yeah, she had the best hair, the best answer. She was a smart one. Who didn't want to be her?
Yeah.
So I think Isabel had that in those presidents, like Urraca.
Interesting. Yeah, because
so Isabel had a president of a successful female ruler, where Elizabeth of York had Maud to think about. What happened to Maud?
Yeah, exactly. Like that didn't turn out well. So I guess I just have to go with the flow and let this guy rule.
By the time Mary I came around in 1553, she was not thinking of Maud. She was thinking of Isabel of Castile.
Yeah.
She was thinking of her grandmother. She was like, oh, grandma would be so happy now, la abuela. Oh, she probably called her abuela because, she spoke Spanish.
Yeah.
She knew Spanish that Catherine had taught her. And I'm sure when she got on she got on her horse to march into London and face whatever it was, which could have been a civil war. and she kissed a crucifix that her mother had left her. I'm sure she thought of her abuela and said, "This is for you, abuela. And I could only do this because you've given me." I mean, she had more, her lineage was bigger than Henry VIII's lineage, really, Mary Tudor's, Mary the First,
Yeah.
because of Isabel and Fernando. So that's what Isabel and all those female presidents in Leon and Castile do for England, really. I think it's a European thing that really is happening in these kingdoms that are more in the Atlantic side of Europe.
Yeah.
It's like a European thing, not just an English thing. You know?
We can't, as much as we like to pick on Henry VIII and call him the tool, he named Mary and Elizabeth in his line of succession, which honestly hadn't been done prior until like Matilda.
After almost killing both of them, and calling them bastards, and killing the mother of one of them, and poisoning the mother of the other one. And yeah.
I knew
right.
I knew you were gonna do that. I knew it. I was trying so hard just to find this cool little
after
connection.
All those things. Yeah, he's like, well, you know what I thought, girls? Give your daddy a hug. I'm going to put you back in the line of succession.
Right. I mean, I get that he expected his son Edward to rule and to get married and to have sons, and that
and he and Mary and Elizabeth, for that sake, never questioned that Edward was the true heir when Edward became king, and he was a boy. So Mary could have said, you know what. But instead, because she had this mindset that her grandmother Isabel had, and Elizabeth of York had too, she knew she wasn't the rightful heir. But once Edward died, he was the one to make the mess.
Yes.
Edward was the one to make the mess because he shouldn't have put his cousin in the line of succession. He wrote her death sentence, not Mary Tudor. It was him.
Yeah.
Or his advisors, more like.
Or John Dudley.
Yeah, a 15-year-old, boy. Come on. Well, you know more about that, right? Because you say.
I feel like Edward had not very much control. And I don't know that he necessarily wanted the control. I think he was happy letting his advisors make these tough, kind of like his dad.
A 15-year-old happy just having fun and not having to worry about politics? Yeah. Jeez, that would have been a first.
I think he was like emulating his dad, Henry VIII, when he came to the throne, right? He was like, I'm just here to play. You guys go rule in my stead and I'll hang out and play with the boys.
Good ambassadors again. The Aragonese ambassador says in one of his first letters to Fernando of Aragon when Henry and Catherine are crowned that all he does is party all day, jousting, partying, jousting. This court is an endless party.
I mean, it sounds
Who can
great.
blame him?
Sounds
Nobody
fun.
can blame him. I mean, his father had left him tons of money. He had just turned 18. He had the smartest wife in Europe and the one who was doing all the work, the back work for him internationally. So why not? Life is a party.
Yeah, why not?
He had all the stuff that she had brought from Spain that he could finally use for his parties. So they did, and in the first years of Henry and Catherine's reign, in the festivity accounts, where you see they say strange fashions, or they start to celebrate the carnival, and they dressed as Turks. They're not really dressed as Turks. They're dressed with the clothing that Catherine has brought, because in the Spanish court there was a lot of influence from Moorish fashion. So it's not coming from Turkey. They say they dressed as Turks. It's because of the fashion, not because this stuff has come from Turkey. It's because it's the type of fashion is a fashion linked to the things that Catherine brought from Spain, because Spain was very eclectic in that sense. So when we see Henry VIII, I mean, there's a very famous anecdote of one of Henry and Anne Boleyn's rows when she finds out that Catherine's still making his shirts.
That's right. Yeah, she's not very happy about that, is she?
Come on, Henry, that's pretty lame. And Catherine, that's pretty cool that she did that. She's like, yeah, I'll make your shirts. Go tell Anne. Go tell Anne.
It just says so much about Henry VIII, doesn't it? Where he's like, what? It's not a big deal.
I think it says more about the fact that Catherine was better embroiderer than Anne Boleyn ever was, and had a better sense of fashion, probably. And she was known to be a skilled embroiderer, and this is something that has been repeated over and over and over. This is not any more about parallel lives of Elizabeth of York and Isabel of Castile. This is Catherine of Aragon show, okay? um, but I found out that she painted too. We talked about this before.
Oh yeah.
When she's a regent in 1513, maybe I shouldn't give away all the stuff about the course. Well,
Yeah, you
there's so much more.
probably shouldn't. Like,
No, there's so much more. Don't worry, guys, you're fine. And this is after even that she goes in England. When she's a queen already and she's a regent and Henry's not in England, she sends a letter to Wolsey saying, since the Scots invaded, I've been terribly busy making banners, standards, and badges. You go to the war expenses of Henry VIII, all those were painted. Often it says with an image of the Trinity, with an image of St. George. So she was painting figures. She was painting coats of arms. She was painting heavily pregnant too. Remember, she was pregnant at that time.
Yeah.
When she asked Henry's jeweler to make a crown for her, she knew how to put on a show. That's what I'm saying, right? Yeah. And painting, embroidering, and all these things, all these flashy things that we always attribute to like the Anne Boleyn was a fashionable. No, it was Catherine when she arrived with all the stuff from Spain that the English court became this Renaissance court that we see in the Holbein pictures, for example.
I fall more and more in love with Catherine of Aragon every time we talk about her. Did you ever think I would say that? Did you ever think I would say that?
Well, yes, because come on. I'm telling you so many things, cool things about her. I'll tell you one very cool thing that connects Isabel of Castile, Elizabeth of York, and Catherine of Aragon. When Catherine arrives to England, there's a set of previous expenses that survive of Elizabeth of York. Just in that year where Catherine arrives until Elizabeth dies in 1503, after giving birth to a little girl, she names Catherine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when Arthur dies, one of the first things that Isabel of Castile does is write to Elizabeth of York saying, Catherine is in this place where she's sick, where Arthur died, and she was sick too. Please, please, please do something. And Elizabeth of York sends to go and pick up Catherine and brings her back to court. In her privy purse expenses, there's also an entry that says that she used two of the king's painters to paint some beasts, it says, in Windsor. But I think it was 1964, in some of the rooms above the cloisters in the College of St. George in Windsor, they found under the plaster paintings with roses, with pomegranates, with St. Catherine of Alexandria, with references to Arthur Tudor, with feathers of the princes of Wales. So that payment that Elizabeth of York did to paint beasts in Windsor was probably to redo that room for Catherine when she arrived after Arthur died.
Oh, wow.
To paint more stuff, because the walls have paintings from different times. So she probably was adding to that to make her feel welcome at home again, right? After she had gone through, you arrive in November, you marry the Prince of Wales, that you've been betrothed since you were a baby, and then he dies 5 months later. You become so sick that you almost die. So then your mother-in-law, who loves you very much, does that for you. And then she dies shortly after. So Catherine also went through. And then her Isabel of Castile dies the year after.
Wow.
And that is when Catherine of Aragon, who's 19 years old, realizes that she's left with Henry VII and Fernando of Aragon. And she's like, I want to become an ambassadress. Because she knows her protectors, Elizabeth of York and Isabel of Castile, have died. And that's why I chose them. Because they're very, very relevant in the course, obviously, because both of them lived for all this time.
Yeah.
They're very influential on Catherine. but also they die right at the time that she arrives in England, shortly after she arrives in England, not 3 years out into her stay in England. So it's like a defining time for her too, when she loses both her mothers. First, her adoptive mother shortly after, but she's known her whole life. I mean, for example, another time, Elizabeth of York sends a letter to Isabel of Castile saying that, the women in England don't speak Latin or Spanish. So why doesn't Catherine learn French with Margaret of Austria, who was there in the court, who had married John of Spain, the Catherine's brother, and make her sure she gets used to drinking wine because the water in England is not drinkable. I'm like, okay, I think maybe Elizabeth of York had a bit of a drinking problem. I don't know. Who can blame her?
Yeah, right.
I don't judge her. No. If you live in England, you have to get through the winter somehow. You know what I mean? It rains a lot. No, but what I mean is that it was very hard for her, and these women defined her childhood and adolescence. And then as soon as they die, she becomes a woman because she decides to become an ambassadress. And in her own account, it's not Ferdinand saying, hey, now you have to know. She's like, I'm deciphering these letters. I'm already doing it, Dad. So, hey. And he's like, okay, you're pretty smart. So, yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Henry VII negotiates with her. And I think this is triggered by, she thinks Henry VII might even marry her or do something else with her. So I think it's very smart of her to become an ambassadress, double protection, and negotiate herself with Henry VII.
This episode is brought to you by the world's first reposado from Tequila Herradura. Made with slow-cooked, hand-harvested agave sealed into oak barrels and aged 11 months. Before being enjoyed in your glass. Experience the world's first reposado. Tequila Herradura. Please drink responsibly. Responsibility.org. Tequila Herradura. 40% alcohol by volume. Imported by Brown-Forman, Louisville, Kentucky. Herradura is a registered trademark. Copyright 2025 Brown-Forman Corporation.
The McDonald's snack wrap is back. You brought it back. Ranch snack wrap. Spicy snack wrap. You broke the internet. For a snack. Snack wrap is back. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
So
she was in a tough situation after both women died. Like, I can't even imagine what was going through her head.
Well, think about this. Henry VII has Henry VIII reject the marriage to Catherine.
Yeah.
During this time. But she still manages to continue to negotiate. And in 1508, she reaches an agreement, and there's a great ceremonial party in London to marry future Charles V to marry Rose Tudor. She's the one to reach that agreement before she becomes queen.
Oh.
At the same time that she's asking her Spanish secretary to translate the Chronicle of the Kings of England and finish it with her own coronation before Henry VIII is dead. So she's already taking action during this time as ambassadress before she's queen and she's married to Henry VII, because she had seen her mother do it all her life, right?
Yeah.
And she didn't want to end up like Elizabeth of York in a tough situation with, like that. So I think that, it's there's a lot of things of Elizabeth of York and Elizabeth of Castile in what Catherine Aragon does.
Yeah.
So many.
Emma, here we are. I think we're over our hour limit even. And
I'm even tired of speaking today. That's a phrase you've never heard.
Yeah, but in fairness, it is later in the day for you than it normally is when we record. So I'm sure that has something to do with it too.
I was pretty quiet today, working away. So I think it's just we hit a soft spot here with Elizabeth of York and Isabel of Castile, because this whole part of Catherine Aragon's life that we've been talking about, because we're going to do this amazing course that everybody's going to sign up for that starts on the 17th of September. So pretty good, because it's, It's not that far away because we're almost in August, right?
Yeah, it's what's Friday is August 1st. So it's coming up
Yeah,
fast and I'm excited about all the people who have signed up already. I can't wait to see who
me
else
too.
signs up, and
Me too.
it's going to be a
And
lot of fun.
remember the early bird, you get an extra class
Mhm.
with that whole project that is still going on, really, of the necklace, the amazing necklace that I held in my hands. You don't even know the emotions I felt when I held that heart-shaped necklace that once was owned probably by Catherine Marron.
Yeah,
And
that's
it was a love token from Henry VIII because one of the things that we've talked a lot about in the podcast, and I'll hint in the throughout the course is that Henry and Catherine built a magnificent uh, court because she's replicated what she saw in
yeah.
her formative years. Um, she saw Fernando and Isabel do, especially Isabel. She wanted to just be like her mom.
You guys are going to love this course. And I have to
Yeah.
mention too that if you are over on my Patreon and you are a paid patron, if you go over there right now or whenever you decide to buy a ticket, go to my pinned post at the top of the page. And as a patron, you get an extra discount on the tickets, even the early bird
Oh,
ones. So
nice.
make sure you go there, check that out, get the promo code for that so that you can get that extra discount as well. But Dr. Emma, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing the parallel lives of these two amazing women.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of Dr. Emma and Me. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate and review the show. It really helps more people find it. Don't forget to follow or subscribe so you'll know as soon as a new episode drops. And if you'd like to support what we're doing, head over to Patreon and become a patron. You'll get early access, bonus content, and more. Thanks again for being here. See you next time.
Mamá, papá, mi cuerpo crece a un ritmo alarmante y la ropa que me compren ahora me quedará muy pequeña muy pronto. Pero su billetera no tiene que sufrir por la moda con los precios bajos de la vuelta a clases de Amazon. Amazon, gasta menos, sonríe más.
Juvederm Day is coming on August 20th. For one day only, buy one $75 gift card and get one free. Juvederm Day gift cards can be used on any product in the Juvederm collection of fillers. Don't miss out on this once-a-year chance to save. Join Allie now while supplies last. Skin Beef by Juvederm is excluded from this promotion. Terms and conditions apply.